Hello, aspirants. So, we would be starting with the meaning, scope, and development of anthropology. In this video, we'll be learning about the meaning of anthropology. Thereafter, we'll go for the scope of anthropology, and finally, we'll learn about the developmental history of anthropology. So, let's start. When we go for the meaning of anthropology, it is actually the study of man. It's the scientific study of the origin, the behavior, the physical, social, and cultural development of human beings. Anthropologists actually seek to understand what makes us human by studying our human ancestors through archaeological excavations and also by observing living cultures throughout the world. Before knowing the definition of anthropology, let's understand the meaning of anthropology. When we go to the meaning of anthropology, there are basically two sorts of meaning. One is the etymological meaning, and another one is the scientific meaning. The etymological meaning is basically the etymology of something is basically the history, the historical, how the word came into being, the historical origin of the word. So, the etymological meaning of anthropology was given basically by Aristotle. Here I have already mentioned Aristotle, and he said that the after coining the term anthropology, which means anthropos, and which can be divided into anthropos and logos. Anthropos meaning man, and logos meaning the science or the study. So he basically said that anthropology is nothing but the science of man or the study of man. And according to Aristotle, anthropology was basically the gossip that revolves around man, and anthropologist is the gossiper who talks about himself. Now, in 1962 to 65, what happened? This etymological meaning, I'll just write down here so it will be easy for you guys to remember. I said that the meaning can be of two types, right? The meaning can be of two types. One is the etymological meaning, and the other one is the scientific meaning. The etymological meaning is that which has come through history. So, first we knew about Aristotle. He gave the meaning of anthropology. He gave the term anthropology, he coined the term anthropology, and which meant that the science of man or the study of man. And this definition was intact or was used till 1962. But what happened in 1962 is that during 1962 to 1965, there was the women liberation movement in USA. Now, this was a movement which criticized this gender specific meaning, because here when we use the term man, it is quite gender specific. So, after that, this etymological meaning of the study of man or the science of man changed into the science of humankind. This is all about the etymological meaning. When we go to the scientific meaning is nothing but the science of the anthropology is nothing but the science of humankind in all its totality. When we say in all its totality, it means it includes the biological, cultural as well as societal aspect of anthropology, and in all dimensions as well, that is the past and present dimension. So anthropology is scientific meaning can be it is the science that deals with the biological, cultural and social aspects of humankind at all places, at all times, and in a very very holistic way. It is as we know over here, anthropology is inquisitive about man. It wants to know about man, its past, present, as well as future, and that too in all spheres. That is not just biology, but also cultural as well as societal, across all time and space. When we go to the definitions of anthropology, uh, I'll just give you a brief about it. When you are asked about the meaning, what all explanation I have told you till now, that explanation you can mention in the meaning portion. If the question asks you about the meaning of anthropology. But when the question asks you about the definition of anthropology, you should mention the definitions given by Aristotle or Kroeber or Kant or Encyclopedia Britannica Encyclopedia, or even we have the Oxford Dictionary. All these you should mention. So let's start with what all definitions were given by these people. Aristotle, as I already told you, he said that the gossip which revolves around man is anthropology, and anthropologist is the gossiper who talks about himself. German universities in 16th and 17th century, they defined anthropology. It is not mentioned here. Kindly note it down, because it is not possible to write all the definitions. When I am explaining, I can tell you some more definitions also. So note this down. German universities in 17th, 14th to 17th, 14th and 17th century, they gave a definition of anthropology, which was the systematic study of man as a physical and as a moral being. Here physical being means it includes all the biological aspects. Moral being includes all the intangible aspects of human being, just like belief, morals, ethics, ideals, etc. Then we have Kroeber. Kroeber said that anthropology is nothing but the science of groups of men, their behavior and production. Then we go to the definition which was given by Kant. Kant said that anthropology is nothing but the study it's the study that describes the animal origins, the social, cultural development and progress of man. So Kant was actually a German philosopher of 18th century, and he wrote a book which was named Anthropology. His book's name was Anthropology, and in this book he mentioned that anthropology is the discipline which is concerned with the human origin, social as well as cultural development and progress of man. Then we go to the definition given by Herzgovitz. He said that anthropology may be defined as the measurement of human beings. Then we have the Britannica Encyclopedia, which defined anthropology as a discourse on human nature. Nature infers human biology, human culture and human society. Another definition which was given by Oxford Dictionary, you could mention it. It mentioned the definition of anthropology as the study of mankind, especially of its societies and customs. The study of mankind, especially of its societies and customs. Also it said that the study of structure and evolution of man as an animal. This was the definition given by Oxford Dictionary. Another definition of one important personality who has cast an indelible imprint in anthropology is Edward Tylor. And Edward Tylor, he defined anthropology in his book. He also wrote a book which had the same name as the book written by Kant. His book's name was also Anthropology. In his book Anthropology, he defined anthropology as the study of old remains of people and the physical features, races, languages, customs, and practices of primitive peoples. This was the definition given by Edward Tylor. So this is all about the meaning and definition of anthropology. Now let's go to the scope of anthropology. Scope of anthropology is that what does anthropology do? What it tries to answer? Before going to the scope, what does it try to answer? What does it understand? We already know that it is the study of biology, culture, society of man throughout time in all parts of world. We have already learnt it before. And also it helps to aims to understand the origin, development of man and humanity's potentials as well as limitations. But what actually it tries to answer? Actually, anthropology tries to answer enormous variety of questions about human beings, such as when, where, why humans appeared on earth and why they have changed since then. Another question which anthropology seeks to answer is how and why these modern human populations vary in their physical features. And the third question which anthropology seeks to answer is how and why societies on the past and present have varied in their customary ideas as well as practices. So these are the questions which anthropology basically tries to answer. Now, there are, as we already know, anthropology's like specific role amongst many other disciplines. There are already many disciplines, and history is there, social science is there, medical science is there, which also tries to know human beings. But why is anthropology so special? That we would know in this scope of anthropology. Here, as we know, anthropology is divided into 4 subdisciplines, which is biological or physical anthropology, sociocultural anthropology, then we have archaeological anthropology, then we have linguistic anthropology. But what distinguishes it from other social sciences are these features: holism, cultural relativism, cross-cultural studies, participant observation, emic and etic approach, all these things. But first let's understand what are the 4 subdisciplines of anthropology. The 4 subdisciplines are physical anthropology. It is nothing but the study of biological evolution as well as biological variation. Biological evolution, how do we learn? We learn through Darwin's theory, synthetic theory, etc. and other 2 processes of micro and macro evolution. We learn through all these processes, which we would be studying later on in the later chapters. These all are included in this chapter, like in unit 1 only it is there, and we would be studying about all these things thoroughly in the subsequent chapters. Then how do we study biological variations? We study through race, genetics. This is chapter 9 of your this paper 1, chapter 9, through these 9, and this is chapter 11, I think 11th 10th or 11th. In 12th we have the applications of anthropology, we have in chapter 12, and this is, I guess, chapter 11. Yes, it is in chapter 12 we have the applications of anthropology, and in chapter 11, I guess it is chapter 10 is the growth and development of anthropology. I mean growth and development of human beings. That is what we have in chapter 10. Yes, in that we would be studying the physical growth and development, and human adaptability also we do have. All these things we'll be studying in those chapter 9, 10, 11 we'll be studying. Then we have the socio-cultural anthropology. What is this discipline? This actually studies the socio-cultural evolution of human beings in family, marriage. How did we started having this institution of marriage or kinship? How polity began? What were the primitive economy? How religion played an important role in the primitive societies? So all these we learn under sociocultural anthropology. Also, we know about sociocultural variation, how one society or the practices of one society varies from another society. So that is what we learn in sociocultural anthropology. These things I would be expanding on these ideas of biological or physical anthropology, sociocultural anthropology in the subsequent chapter 1.2. But here I'll just give you a brief of it. That is archaeological anthropology. It studies about the evolution of material culture, and how do we study that? Through excavations of fossils, arts, artifacts, through that. Then we have linguistic anthropology, which is a beautiful branch of anthropology which studies evolution of languages and the variation of language across different culture, different geographical locations. All these things will be studying in linguistic anthropology. But yes, we come to the unique feature, as I already told you, holism, cultural relativism. All these differentiate anthropology from other branches. Now, what happens? What happens is that the beauty of anthropology lies in its holism actually. Now, you might be thinking, what is holism? Holism is nothing but a fundamental principle of anthropology. And in holism, actually, the various parts of human culture and human biology must be viewed in the broadest possible context in order to understand their interconnections and interdependence. If we go by Clark, as per Clark, because anthropologists take holistic approach, they tend to look for links between different facets of society that other other branches, other disciplines may miss. Holistic approach helps or involves the study of human beings or groups in terms of entire pattern of their life. This human life will be studied in combination of biology, then social relations, economics, art, etc. And each and every field have influence on the other and their influence on the human beings. Here we have already mentioned it's comprehensive, it is integrative, uses systems and processes approach, and the working of every system in relation to every other system. I'll explain you with a small example. Suppose sticks are there. Okay, some sticks are lying down. Every other stick you pick, you displace or move one stick, it will affect the position of other sticks also. So this is how you can say holism is. Like I gave you a rudimentary example. A pile of sticks, you move one stick also, the other sticks will be affected by that. So that is how holism works. Example here we have given is kinship system, influence on the economic system. Other social sciences, anthropology distinguishes itself from other social sciences also in terms of cultural relativism. Cultural relativism like this helps in addressing this concept of ethnocentrism. What is ethnocentrism? Like my culture is the best. What traditions I follow, they are the best. And that of having an idea. I'm not telling here that I'm disrespecting anyone, but having an idea about one's own culture and telling it that it's the best is nothing bad. But at the same time, telling or professing that my culture is the best, but the culture of my fellow mate or someone else is not as good as mine, is called ethnocentrism. My culture is the best and it is better than anyone else. That is ethnocentrism. So this cultural relativism actually helps in addressing ethnocentrism. We become more receptive, and we learn to accept how the cultures are. The best thing that anthropology, if we go by, as you start studying anthropology, one thing it will teach you is to maintain that balance, and to stop judging. we tend to judge something new. We come to know, we start judging it. It's human tendency, actually. It's human tendency in the society which we live, that we start judging. But I'm sure after studying anthropology, by the time you complete your paper 1 and paper 2, you'll become quite less judgmental. That has happened to me, so that's a personal experience. You'll become less judgmental. So again, coming back to the topic, cross cultural studies. And how do we study this cross cultural study? How do we do that? We do it through comparative analysis or comparative methods. So these helps in the cross cultural studies. They are basically, these comparative methods are used as means of explaining the similarities as well as differences amongst different various groups of people on earth. It basically attempts to isolate and define the laws and principles that account for the development as well as perpetuation of such differences as well as similarities. Now, this comparative method can be diachronic, as I told you, and synchronic. Diachronic means the evolution and variation of a particular culture. A particular culture is taken into account. Synchronic means cross cultural comparison. Means, see, you just remember diachronic. How do you remember this? Is diachronic involves the culture remains constant and we study the variation of that culture across time span. But in synchronic, we keep the time constant and we compare different cultures. So that is how cross cultural study is done. Then we have I do say this as the hero. This is the hero amongst all the practices of anthropology. This is participant observation. This is actually the hero amongst all other practices. Participant observation is undertaken by many scientists, and they do observe through field work tradition. They go to the field, they stay with those societies which they are studying. They become a part of that society, and in that manner they start studying the society. So that was about participant observation and fieldwork tradition. Then we have the emic and etic approach. Emic and etic approach, you need to understand this is, I think some of you, those who are starting anthropology as beginners, this would be a very new term for you. Remember this. Emic approach means the view of cultural practitioners, the practitioners of that culture, what view they have, that is called the emic approach. And the etic approach is the view or the ideas of the anthropology about that particular culture. So basically we know, right now we know that this unique feature of anthropology helps in understanding the human differences, and it has also clarified all myths regarding the tribals being savages and barbarous. Applied anthropology and action anthropology are two major services rendered by anthropologists. Now, what is applied anthropology? Applied anthropology is nothing but the services of anthropologists in policy making. These anthropologists, they help in making up of policies. Action anthropology, it doesn't just involve policies. They plan as well as they administer the tribal development policies, and those anthropologists, they themselves do this work. They plan, they administer, they learn the tribal development policies themselves. So here they are just involved in policy making. Here they are completely involved. They are the ones who act upon the policies. Now you might be thinking, why do we need anthropologists in policy making? There is no need for anthropologists in policy making. Policy making should be done by administrators, right? Now the answer to that is, since anthropologists study cultures, so it is very much important that they play a role in deciding the futures of people. I'll give you one example. There are some tribes, okay, there are some tribes which is who actually pay respect or pray to sal trees. Sal tree is very much special for such tribes. Now there are many tribes, the for example, these Oraon tribes, they are great devotees of Ram and Sita. Similarly, there are many tribes which actually pray to sal trees, and that is sal tree is very much holds a very much important position in their uh, culture. So, such suppose there is I'll give you one example. Suppose there is a displacement. There is a project which actually has displacement of such Oraon tribes. So that in that scenario, the anthropologist, suppose they are building a new society, or they are building a new habitat for the Oraon tribes, but they don't know that sal tree is important for them. So suppose they build a very good, very beautiful place for these tribes to stay, but there is no sal tree. Would the tribes go and thrive over there? Would the tribal people, or those people of that society, would they go and live over there? The answer is a big no, because they don't have that conducive environment in which they were living. There is no sal tree over there. You might be thinking, what, it's just a matter of a tree. Why is it important? But no, that is important for them. That is how their culture works. So this is why anthropologists are very much needed for policy making when it involves any community which they are studying. So that is what. Then we go to the development of anthropology. Development of anthropology basically portrays how it all began, how anthropology began, how anthropology started, and how it paced, how was its pace, and how we are where we are now. How we are where we are now. How did we reach where we are now? That is what is studied by the development or the history of anthropology. So here we already have mentioned there was we can divide the development of anthropology into one informal beginning and one formal beginning. Informal beginning, as I already told you, that the definition of anthropology was given by Aristotle. Then we have Herodotus, Strabo, all these people. But what is most important is the formal beginning of anthropology, which started somewhere in the 16th century. And what happened is Georges and Buffon's Histoire Naturelle. So these were actually, out of this book was having 44, this publication was having 44 volumes, out of which 2 volumes were completely dedicated to anthropology. And thereafter in 16th century we have the different branches of anthropology, the oldest being the physical anthropology. In 17th and 18th century we started with the social anthropology by Herbert Spencer and Auguste Comte. Then we had the industrial revolution in Europe, from which began the tentacles of colonialism. And this colonialism, they started learning about the natives, their culture, their society, their physical features. That is how anthropology formally began in the places which had been colonized, be it India as well. Here also it began during this time. Then in 1845, Charles Darwin actually, he went on a voyage of Beagle, and there after around 1859 AD he wrote The Origin of Species. So that also laid the foundation of anthropology, biological anthropology. In 19th century we have anthropology as a separate discipline, and it was taught in universities. Edward Tyler was the first, he held the first academic position in anthropology. Then we had Franz Boas, who was the first professor of anthropology at Clark University in USA. In 1985, we have the first course of anthropology known as general anthropology being taught in the University of Vermont. Here, when anthropology began as a separate discipline, it was not taught as a course, it was taught as a part of a course. But here in 1885 it started being taught as a full-time course of general anthropology. That is how this formal beginning was there. Now you can go in depth about formal beginning also, and you can write some things which I would love to mention over here for your understanding. T.K. Penniman, actually, the name is, I'll write it down. T.K. Penniman. He wrote a book, and his book was published in 1935. The name of the book was 100 Years of Anthropology. And in this book, he described the phases of growth of anthropology as follows. I'll mention it. This also, it was about the formal beginning of anthropology. He didn't mention about this informal beginning. He didn't mention about the informal beginning. He mentioned about the formal beginning, and what he said was the advent and the progress of anthropology was basically divided into certain phases. So he put the first phase of anthropology, development of anthropology, as formulatory phase. Okay. The first phase was known as formulatory phase, and this was before 1835. Okay. This phase was before 1835, and this was known as the formulatory phase. This phase includes the view of ancient scholars of Greek, Roman, like Socrates and all. It's basically the informal beginning, what has happened, what Aristotle said about anthropology, what Plato, what Socrates said, all that thing was basically formed a part of formulatory phase of anthropology. Thereafter, the second phase of anthropology was somewhere between 1835 to 1859, and it was known as the convergent phase of anthropology. Now here, I'll mention it. It was known as the convergent. It was known as the convergent phase of anthropology. Now here, divergent views regarding society emerged during this period. An important development was the coming of the term sociology. Sociology term was coined by Auguste Comte. Thereafter, we have the constructive phase. The constructive phase of anthropology, which was somewhere between 1859 till the 1900s. This phase was known as the constructive phase of anthropology. And 1859 was actually a landmark year in biological and social anthropology, social sciences, because of obviously, I have already told you, Charles Darwin's work on the origin of species by means of natural selection. It was published. Subsequently, two theories of evolution evolved, that is the organic theory and the cultural theory. Then thereafter, why another reason why it was important, because cultural or classical evolutionists such as E.B. Tylor and Morgan, they suggested that culture evolves in a unilinear or sequential manner. Due to this theory, in 1884, what happened? Anthropology got a place in the Oxford University as an independent discipline. I have already mentioned over 1885, University of Vermont. First course was there. In 1884, we have anthropology as a discipline, independent discipline in Oxford University. Most of the scholars of 19th century, they utilized secondary sources of data, like excluding a very few like Morgan. Others, they utilized secondary sources of data. In 1898, around the 1900s, in 1898, one expedition was led by Rivers, W.H.R. Rivers. Kindly write it down, W.H.R. Rivers. He led an expedition which was known as Torres. I'll write it down. Torres Strait. Torres Straits expedition. It was led by W.H.R. Rivers, and he conducted the first systematic field work in anthropology. Field work, I have already told you over here that it is the jewel in the crown. Participant observation, and I've already mentioned over here participant observation and fieldwork tradition. It was first started by, as I told you, the Torres Strait expedition by W.H.R. Rivers. First systematic fieldwork was done by him. Thereafter, I have already told you about the 3 phases so far. Thereafter, we have the 4th phase, which was known as the critical phase. This was known as the critical phase of anthropology, and it was somewhere between 1900s to 1935. Now, what happened during this phase? It was during this phase that Radcliffe Brown visited the Andaman and Nicobar Islands and studied about the tribes. On the basis of his study, actually, he developed the structural functional school of thought. We'll be learning about all these school of thoughts in chapter 6, anthropological theories. So right now you'll be wondering, many terms which I tell you, they would be like going tangent in your brain. You won't be understanding, but do not worry, we would be covering that in the subsequent chapters. Chapter 1, I don't understand one thing. Chapter 1 should not be taught at the beginning. Chapter 1.1 should be actually taught at the end. That is what I feel. Because there are many things which you won't understand, which would be taught in the subsequent chapters. Nevertheless, let's go through this and understand what we can understand. So coming back, this critical phase, actually, I told you it began with Radcliffe Brown visiting Andamans, studying the tribes. On the basis of his study, he developed the structural functional school of thought, and he worked on concepts like social structure, institution, all these things. In 1914 to 1918, what happened? Malinowski is another great anthropologist. I'll write down his name so that you remember this great person's name. Malinowski. Yeah, Malinowski. He conducted his fieldwork amongst the islanders, which was Trobriand Islanders, and he conducted his field work over there, and this landmark work actually that led to the development of the technique of participant observations. So this basically his field work among the Trobriand Islanders, it led to the development of the technique of participant observation, which became a hallmark in the anthropological field work. It also led to the emergence of different fields like the functionalism, the economic anthropology. All these things evolved after that. Thereafter, in 1920s, what happened? It was actually a turning point. We can say it was a turning point in anthropological investigation. Why? Because with the onset of studies of peasant societies. The pioneer of this was Robert Redfield. He postulated critical concepts like the great, little and great traditions, folk societies, peasant societies, all these things. So, the folk-urban continuum, all these things were postulated by him. Since then, anthropology has no more been a study of tribal societies only. It has become the study of all societies as a whole. After 1935, what happened? Anthropology has grown rapidly. An international interdisciplinary approach has enhanced its holistic outlook and seen the emergence of several specializations. And other specializations which include we have the economic anthropology, medical anthropology, psychological anthropology. All these things were included post 1935. So this was all about the meaning, scope and development of anthropology. See you all again in another chapter in the next subsequent video. Goodbye till then. Keep learning.